Welcome back to the Panic Room, guys. This is the second book review on this channel, and boy, am I glad to get into this one. Hang on to your hats, dude. We have a story to talk about today. So we're going to sort of keep the same MO as we did in the Nirvana Effect. You should check out that review. But first we're going to talk about sort of a little overview of the book, and then we'll start to get into some spoilers. So if you haven't read it, just spoiler alert right now. But let's get started because we have a lot to talk about. We're talking about The Burning Girls by C.J. Tudor today. And right off the bat, when I saw the cover, I got some Salem Witch Trial vibes. What did you think? I got Salem Witch Trials from this, and the inside cover blurb was perfect. It was written in such a way that you were left hungry for more. And I think that's exactly what you want out of those. So let's read the inside cover blurb, shall we? A dark history lingers in Chapel Croft. 500 years ago, Protestant martyrs were betrayed, then burned. 30 years ago, 2 teenage girls disappeared without a trace. And a few weeks ago, the vicar of a local parish hanged himself in the name of the church. Reverend Jack Brooks, a single parent with a 14-year-old daughter and a heavy conscience, arrives in the village hoping for a fresh start. Instead, Jack finds the town rife with conspiracy and secrets and is greeted with a strange welcome package, an exorcism kit, and a note that warns, "But there is nothing covered up that will not be revealed, and hidden that will not be known." The more Jack and daughter Flo explore the town and get to know its strange denizens, the deeper they are drawn into the age-old rifts, mysteries, and suspicions. And when Flo begins to see specters of girls ablaze, it becomes apparent there are ghosts here that refuse to be laid to rest. Uncovering the truth can be deadly in a village with a bloody past, where everyone has something to hide and no one trusts an outsider. I mean, come on. How can you not want to read it after that? It was almost like, the only thing I can think of is I almost got some Murder, She Wrote vibes from it. Kind of like small town mystery, but I'm probably dating myself with that. Anyway, so I kept notes on each chapter, and no joke, it's 3 pages front and back. So rather than go chapter by chapter, I thought, as far as a general overview, we'll start just to talk about the characters. Our 2 main characters are Jack, who is mentioned in the little blurb, and Flo. And they are mother and daughter, which threw me off to begin with because I was like, Jack, I thought it was a guy, but it's actually short for Jacqueline. Whatever, but it was kind of a shock, when she called her mom. And that's another thing. It's set in England, or Sussex. And I love books that are kind of set in different cultures other than my own because I get to learn stuff. And I made some notes because there is some, what I'm assuming is maybe English slang or just English colloquialisms. Comment down below if you're from England, let me know. One was wellies, and I have not looked up what wellies are. I'm assuming they're a type of clothing just based on the context clues of the book. I will put a picture of them here if I can find it. But yeah, that was one thing that I didn't know. Another thing, and hold on, let me look that up in my notes. In the Duff. Was it in the Duff? I had no idea. No clue. It's like in the scene where Flo's talking to her friends back home because she's from a place called Nottingham, and then they move to the tiny little village of Chapel Croft where all the action takes place. And I had to look it up, and it means like pregnant, like getting knocked up the Duff. I really like Jack. I guess when I found out that the story was going to be about a Protestant vicar, I had a lot of just cultural and movie imprints on my brain about like how they act, and she blew them all away like within the first paragraph because she's got some attitude on her, and honestly rightfully so, because she has a jerk of a boss in the beginning. And I love her humor. I love the fact, she smokes, she drinks red wine and all of this stuff. I'm like, I didn't know a vicar could do that. But, whatever. Like, she's a very likable character. She's very down to earth, right from the get-go. You tend to really like her. There's this one scene right at the beginning of the book where they pull up to the new chapel in the little village of Chapel Croft. And on the outside, there's supposed to be a sign that says, "Redeem the time," but it says, "Redeem the Tim." And she laughs at that, and I laughed at that. Like, that is totally something I would have laughed at. Like, who's Tim? Why does he need redeemed? And also Flo. Like, I really liked Flo. She's 15 years old in the book, and there's not a whole lot of that teen angst, adolescent hormone driven arguing. There's some of that, but it's very much tempered, which I appreciated. I feel like the author could have totally went there with, the arguing between mom and daughter, but she didn't. And Flo has a really good head on her shoulders. Like, I would be proud to have a 15-year-old girl like Flo. I hope I was the 15-year-old girl like Flo. There are so much sprinkled in this book as far as clues and just little intrigues. I'm just going to pull a few of them out. Like there's the little old woman, Joan, who was the reporter who kind of puts it in her head that, things might not be as they seem. And then there's everything having to do with the little royal family of this town, the Harpers. And they are the family you have seen in every movie about a small town. They are the ones with money, the prestige. They're like the backbone of the town. That is the Harpers. And in true fashion, they're jerks. Pretty much all of them. The dad is an asshole. The older daughter is a psycho. And the little girl is completely screwed up in the head, rightfully so, when you find out what happened to her. But yeah, so you have that whole situation going on. And, and then, of course, just the whole idea of a small town not trusting outsiders, like it said in the blurb. But they should not be trusting themselves. Like, there's a lot going on behind the scenes in this town way before Flo and Jack ever got there. But of course, it is wrapped up kind of nicely with a pretty little bow at the end, which after everything that happened to these characters, I was okay with. I know that real life doesn't get tied up nice and easy with a bow, but I was glad to see some closure for these characters because boy, did they go on a wild ride. So we're going to start getting into a little bit more of the specifics. Obviously, spoilers ahead if you haven't read the book. I highly recommend it. It's a very good read and a pretty easy read. I mean, it's only 333 pages, I think. Yeah, just 333 pages. So it is a pretty easy read. I finished it in about 3 days, but we have a lot going on here. We're getting ready to move, so I thought that was pretty good, actually. It's a little slower than what I usually read, but I thought it was pretty good, all things considered. So tell me, if you read this book, what was your first thoughts on Jack as a character? Because as it went on, I just sort of started feeling sorry for her. Because we start seeing these flashbacks with this little girl named Ruby. And later on you find out that Ruby was this abused little girl that she tried to help, but the whole situation sort of got away from her. And because her parents were uber religious, she was somehow blamed in the media, which caused all this backlash for her. And that just broke my heart because it's how many times have you seen that? The media just takes a story and runs with it and, it's kind of undeserved, so to speak. I mean, I really just felt bad for her. And then you think, here's Flo having to go through all of that as a teenager. No wonder she is kind of old for her years, right? But they have a really good relationship. A really good relationship. They argue a little bit, but the author doesn't sort of lean on that mother, teenage daughter, parent trap sort of fighting that you see in so many novels and movies. It's really not in this one, which I appreciated. But boy, when they get to this town, it's just the snowball effect, man. As soon as they're there, Poppy, the little girl, 6, 7-year-old girl, Harper, who is the daughter of the royal family of this town, shows up covered in blood. Of course, you find out later that it's pig blood, but then it's well, Poppy was supposed to be gone, because she's all attached to the farm animals, but somehow her sister let her in there. And then later, when you meet the sister Rosie and you find out that she's a psycho bitch, she's a huge bully. She starts bullying Flo, calling her Vampirina and all this. And she is set up, even described, as the quintessential mean girl. She's long blonde hair, beautiful, she's got money. But then she's got this cousin Tom who is a Beverly Hillbilly or something because at one point they shoot Flo and this boy Wrigley that she meets with an airsoft gun. And Wrigley is an interesting character. Tell me what you thought about him because boy did he come out of left field, didn't he? They call him Wrigley. His name's Lucas Wrigley. But he tells Flo that he has this dystonia, which is a nervous disorder or a nerve disorder where he twitches. and he gets made fun of for that. And you find out, like, Rosie comes up to Flo later telling her, like, oh, he killed a girl in his last school and set it on fire. And I didn't believe it at first. I was like, no, Rosie's a huge bitch. No, that's not true. Something else had to happen. So Flo, being the level-headed one she is, kind of confronts him about it, right? And he says, he did set it on fire, but it was because he was getting picked on and he didn't know the girl was in there. Which is super plausible. Not that I'm saying it was okay to set it on fire, but it's plausible. Of course, later when Mom follows up, because she's a good mom, Jack is a good mom, she follows up and you find out that he's just psycho. That he did know the girl was in there because they were close, but, they could never prove it, so he just sort of, like, transferred schools and everybody tried to forget it. So you see this whole, like, budding romance start to happen between Flo and Wrigley, and, I'm all for it. I feel like, it's two outsiders getting made fun of, teenage love, whatever. There's even, what did you think about that scene when he takes her to the creepy house in the woods, and there's, like, all that satanic graffiti and shit on the walls, and he tries to make it, like, a romantic picnic? My first thing was like, oh, he's really trying. But then I'm like, what kind of psycho sets up a romantic picnic in, like, the middle of a satanic murder house? That should have been my first red flag. It should have been. But, I'm a hopeless romantic. I wanted it to work. But one of the creepiest things that I thought, and it was like chapter 5 was the first one, because the chapters go back and forth from being told from Jack's perspective and Flo's perspective. And then all of a sudden in chapter 5, we get this whole new perspective of this, like, mysterious guy. In my notes, I just called him the Stranger. Who didn't see it coming that the Stranger was Jack's brother? I was blown away that was Jack's brother, because, you got the little blurb of her taking out the little letter from, the jail that said he got early release, but we're not told who. So you just know, you're thinking, like, okay, he got early release, that he must be the Stranger, right? But you never know that they're family until it's, like, revealed in one of his little flashbacks about their childhood. And you know that Jack comes from a bad family, with some abuse. That's kind of why she got into the priesthood. But you don't know the extent of it until you see it through the Stranger's eyes. Wow, that was the first huge revelation. And, this guy has this, like, crazy psycho war going on in his head because, like, he wants to be good, but then he talks about how, like, he'll just see red and go off, and how he's killed people, and you see him kill people, like he killed that little elderly couple to get their medicine and their food and stuff. So like, what he's capable of. But then there's this whole war about how he wants to be good and how he wants a family and he wants to find her and blah, blah, blah. And then as if that's not bad enough, we know that Jack is a single mother because her husband was killed. And her husband was a vicar too. But then you find out that her husband was killed by her brother, Jacob, the Stranger. The plot thickens, right? And Flo doesn't know any of this because she was like a baby when he was killed. So through the flashbacks with the Stranger, you find out that Flo's husband was a piece of shit and was, like, beating on her and stuff. So that's why the brother killed him. So that got me thinking, like, is he evil? Or is he just, like, a vigilante, handing out justice, right? But then I'm thinking, the whole time it's like he's stalking Jack, like he wants to get back to her. And I'm just like, this can't be good, So, again, you're following the scent of this character the whole time thinking, like, here's your villain. When, meanwhile, back in, I think Flo calls it Nothing Happensville, you get this whole mess of characters, kind of like, if you've ever seen Edward Scissorhands, just this whole, like, menagerie of people in a small town, the way it was in that movie. There's Joan, the reporter lady, the little old lady who I love, who, sort of puts it in Jack's head that maybe the previous vicar before her didn't commit suicide, like she was told, that maybe he was killed, which just adds to it. Then Jack kind of diving into the whole idea of the girls 30 years ago that went missing. She starts to find all these things, like she finds a tape about one of the girls' exorcisms. She finds the Bible from one of the girls, and it's usually Mary that she finds, like the tape. Mary, Merry, by the way. Mary and Joy, those are the two girls. And she finds like Mary's Bible. She finds the tape of Mary's exorcism, which interspersed with a lot of this, we get these flashbacks to the girls, and we see just how terrible their lives really were. And at one point, like, she goes to visit Joy's mom, who has dementia now, and sort of breaks into the girl's room. And at the whole point, I'm like, you're a vicar. What are you doing? But, again, I like her. She's got spunk. And she sees this picture where the two girls were wearing necklaces. Like, one had a J, one had an M. And it starts getting batshit insane. Like, you find out that, when Flo and Wrigley go for that picnic that I mentioned, they get accosted by Rosie and Tom, who try to throw them down a well. Like, straight up murder. Like, it's not even bullies anymore. It's straight up murder. And Flo can take care of herself. Like, you see some little, like, self-defense moves here and there through the book. But then you find out the mysterious stranger saves Flo from the whole, like, assault from Rosie, right? And of course, there's these town politics happening. The dad doesn't believe, the Harper dad, Rosie's dad, doesn't believe that his daughter is doing any of this stuff. And so you get that whole politics, and Jack she stands her ground. She doesn't give a crap. Like, she'll tell him where to go, which I love. And, like, you meet all these auxiliary characters, especially within the priesthood, where Jack is sort of, like, revolving. And one of the characters is Rushton, and his wife Clara. And most of these characters have been in this town for ages and ages and ages. And they and Joan, the little old lady who is the reporter, start telling her about Grady, the hot priest from 30 years ago, who also disappeared when the girls disappeared. So tell me what you thought. I was like, I think there was some illicit stuff going on between that priest and one of those girls. And when you find out that Joy was having extra Bible lessons, I'm like, there you go. That's why he disappeared, because he did something with that little girl. That 15-year-old girl, he did something, that's why he disappeared. Until Flo sees one of the Burning Girls, and talk about spooky moments. Every moment with the Burning Girls is just a great spooky moment. Like, one of them doesn't have any arms or head. One of them has like a melted face, and Flo gets freaked out, ends up crashing through some floorboards in the church, and they find like a hidden vault. And lo and behold, it's got Grady's body in it. But not only Grady's body. No. So part of the ruling family, the Harpers, part of their claim to fame is the fact that they can trace their lineage back to these martyrs that stood up for their faith back in the 1500s in this town. Except that's all bullshit, because their asses are in this grave. Yeah. And the guy knew it and paid to cover it up. That's why he's been donating so much money. Because he didn't want his family name ruined, because he wanted to be, high on the hog and the head honcho and remain, oh, my family goes all the way back to the martyrs, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So that tells you all you need to know about him. So you have that intrigue going on. The whole time there's this author that is sort of tied to the hot priest, Grady, by the name of Saffron Winters. And, they say like, oh, she was sort of like involved with him and da-da-da-da-da. And so Jack starts to dig, finds out that Saffron Winters is a pen name, and it's actually Wrigley's mother. That's Saffron Winters. So now we have that tie. So she goes around to Wrigley's house and finds out that Saffron Winters has been dead for months, finds her rotten body in one of the bedrooms, and then Wrigley beans her over the head. Well, we think it's Wrigley. Well, we know it's Wrigley because she says she sees his green eyes, and it's talking about how he has these really pretty green eyes with silver flecks in them. And yeah, beans her over the head, winds up. I mean, this blew me away, and this is like the last 5 chapters. They just went by in a whirlwind. Winds up that it's actually Wrigley and Rosie are together. Like, Rosie calls them soulmates, and this has all been an act. Like, the reason he killed his mom, the reason he killed the hot priest, was that they were going to, like, out him. Like, he never had dystonia. he was faking the whole thing because he was like, nobody wants to look at the, crippled person and it's the perfect cover and blah, 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 blah. And like him and Rosie got together, which they are a match made in hell right there because they're both psycho. And, of course, Flo is heartbroken, and you find out that he actually did like Flo, but Rosie got super jealous, and now they have to, like, I don't know, kill her. I don't know. It's almost like they don't need a motive, right? They're just nuts. And so he's going to make Jack kill herself the same way that the old guy did. So now we know that the old guy did not hang himself, that it was all this crazy asshole. So we have this epic fight. And you think, like, Flo gets away. We have this absolutely massive fire that's happening because they had all these candles lit like with some kind of weird satanic ritual. And the brother shows up and saves Jack out of the flames, right? Like some kind of weird, stinky, because it talks about how he smells, angel drags her out of the flames after she kills Wrigley, right? And he tries to pull the, oh, but you're a vicar card. And she's like, I'm also a mom. Stab. Which I was like, good on you. Because he's a jerk. He was awful. So then it all starts to kind of come out. Because that creepy old house, did you see it coming that was Mary's house? One of the missing girls? And then, remember when I told you Rosie was going to throw him down the well? They find two bodies down there. One of which was pregnant. And they think it's Mary's at first. No. It's Joy's. So there's one missing girl accounted for who was pregnant. I knew Grady was messing with her. And that just confirmed it. Like, everybody's like, oh, she must have been pregnant from him. But you find out that it was not consensual. That he was just a jerk. And apparently he was messing with Mary too, because on that exorcism tape that they found, yeah, it wasn't exorcism. It was straight up abuse. But you find out that he wasn't just messing with Joy, he was also messing with Mary, because her mom, Mary's mom, had called him in to do that exorcism that you found on the tape. And, like, he was burning her and everything. And how he died was Mary's brother stabbed him. So that got me thinking. I was like, wait a minute. Mary had a brother? Mary is Jack. Jack is Mary. Holy crap. I didn't see it coming at all. Like, at all. Until they made the reference to her brother killing the priest for messing with her, I had no idea. And so then I'm thinking, like, how the hell did she find her way back here? Because then it comes out that she knew all along that she was Mary. Of course, she had taken on this new identity and everything. But then you find out that Rushton, one of the priests that she works with, his wife was in love with Grady, got mad at Joy because she was enticing him even though she was being abused by him, and ends up shoving her down the well. She's the one who killed Joy. And Mary wanted to come back and find out, like, maybe what had happened to Joy. So when all of this went down in Nottingham with her and the little girl Ruby that she couldn't save, this crazy psycho wife of Rushton, who had a thing for the hot priest, was like, oh, let's see if she can come back here, and maybe I can take care of some loose ends with her. Like, I don't know what her deal was. Like, did she want to kill her too? I mean, she was kind of nuts too. And didn't even believe that this 15-year-old girl was getting abused. Straight up thought that, she was seducing a 20-something-year-old priest. Like, for real? There's a lot of people that need some serious therapy in this town. So you find out Jack really doesn't do anything with her at the end. She sort of like drops the tape of the exorcism down the well and tries to and you get this idea that she sort of like has her closure because like she's wearing the initial necklace from Joy, because the reason they thought the body in the well was Mary was because they had switched necklaces. But you see at the end where she takes the necklace off and like puts it down the sink. And I got like some Titanic old lady on the rail vibes. But good for her. I feel like she has some closure now. I really do. And, Flo is starting to recover. She makes a note in the book, or she makes a note to herself about how, Flo is young and hopefully she'll get over a lot of the trauma. But they're on their way to Australia. Like, she is straight up just leaving the whole country. And you have your like Mike, the reporter guy who she's sort of kind of romantically involved with. He's there to sort of send him off. But I like the fact that that wasn't the focus of the book, Like that's what made it not a Lifetime movie for me, because it wasn't, the romance part of it was just sort of like background music, if even that, to the story as a whole. And one thing I love is like the Burning Girls actually now have some peace, because the last apparition that you see, they're whole. They're no longer like armless and headless or melted. They're whole with wings. They're very angelic looking. And I thought that was really cool. Like everybody got closure at the end of the book. I thought that was kind of neat. It was a long book as far as the story goes, but so much cool stuff happened. Twists and turns. It definitely keeps you on your toes. Highly, highly recommend The Burning Girls by C.J. Tudor. What did you think? Tell me down below. I'd love to know. I'd love to have someone to talk to this book about. I love reading, and this was one of the best. I'm so happy I picked this up. So, like I said, comment down below. Tell me what you thought. Thank you for being here for our review, for a second ever book review on this channel. And please like and subscribe. It would help me out so much. Thank you for coming to the Panic Room, guys. Bye for now.